Welcome back to the channel. I have, in the last 5 videos, looked at the perfect rifle cartridge, narrowed it down to the winner. If you haven't seen those videos, go back and watch them, but basically the most balanced all-around rifle cartridge, in my opinion, jack of all trades, master of none, is the 7mm Odd 8. Very efficient round. This is not a 7mm Odd 8. I just happen to be holding this. It's actually a 243 with the Redfield Revenge scope on it. Pretty cheap, pretty basic stuff. But we're talking about scopes today. So now that I've figured out what my perfect rifle cartridge is, the 7mm Odd 8, I need to decide on a perfect scope. Now, the criteria is the same. I want to do hunting and long-range shooting. Long-range shooting for just fun, not competition or anything. Just occasionally I want to have fun. I might want to shoot at 1,000 yards. Hunting for the things I mentioned, potentially coyotes to elk. And then, I'm going with an overall efficient design. So I want the scope to generally go hand in hand with that efficient design. So this is going to be just a one video thing. I'm not going to make it a series. I just want to talk about what I consider to be the perfect scope. Now, let's just be clear. If money was no option, I would get, a $3,000 or $4,000 Schmidt & Bender IOR, something really, really nice, and that would be awesome. That's not practical for my life, so it's not going to happen. So when I say the perfect rifle scope, it doesn't mean the best, okay? It means perfect for me, and affordability is a huge thing. So let's just put that right at the get-go. If it's expensive, I can't afford it. I can't afford anything that's tier 1 quality. Even dropping back down to like your loopholed VX5s, they're about $1,200 or something. That's a phenomenal scope. A little bit out of my price range. So my price range really is going to be about anywhere from $150 to maybe $600 to $700 if I'm absolutely just fall in love with one and it meets all of my needs. So it's got to be within that price range, okay? Now, before I get into the nuts and bolts, before I get into the, specifics of the attributes and things I'm looking for in a scope, let's just get one big thing out of the way. I do like the aesthetics of a scope, okay? This here is just a plain Jane Redfield Revenge scope. It's not that great, but it does a decent job. Got a Weaver style base and got some worn rings on it. Has a 1-inch tube. It's a 3x9. It's just plain Jane standard. It's got a nice look to it though. Now, practically speaking, looks have no effect on shooting. Okay, so I understand that, but I care about looks. It's only one factor. I'm not going to completely judge a rifle based on looks. So if it did everything I wanted it to do and it was super rugged and it had great glass and it had all the features I wanted but looked hideous, that one, thing about the aesthetics wouldn't be enough to completely disqualify it. So it's not the only thing. So too short, too long, turrets that are just gigantic with huge knobs on it. It just looks ugly to me. So let's just talk about turrets for just a second. Now, there's extremes. There's the turrets that are just like the SWF8 turrets. I don't like them. I like that scope. I have one. I love that scope. I'm a fan, but I hate the turrets. I don't like those big, huge, gigantic knobs. I like it to be as streamlined as possible. I understand that it has to stick up, and it's got a lot of information on it. It's got to be functional as a tactical rifle turret. It has to stick out. It can't be flush with the scope, nor do I want it to be flush, because I want to reach up there and be able to turn it. So I understand that. Where you can get away with that and still have a more flat, wider turret that's got all the same information, but just doesn't look hideous. And then on the complete other end of that, you have the old style scopes. Not so much this one. This actually here is pretty good. It has the caps, so your turrets are not exposed. They are capped. This particular one, though, does have numbers on the side, so you can technically see it. And it's not focusing, but it has a texture that you can grab it and actually turn it. So I definitely like that. And I have some of these scopes, but the old style hunting scopes, you literally had to have a coin or a screwdriver to be able to turn those little turrets. So I don't like that either. So somewhere in the middle there. The turret could be exposed, which is fine. I mean, it's just a barrier from the elements. So a capped turret, let me say it properly, a capped turret is actually a pretty cool idea. And if you're sitting down at a bench and you're going to be turning those turrets a lot, you can take the caps off. I do like a turret that you can look directly at it and see numbers without having to get up and look down at it. So those old style turrets with the little slot that you had to get a coin to turn them, I don't like that. But I don't like these crazy stinking turrets that are just massive. So that means something to me. I also don't want I'm not going to point this at you, but just a gigantic objective lens. I mean, this, I believe, is a 42 millimeter, maybe 44. I like between 40 and 50 millimeters. The 56s to me are a little bit big for the types of rifles that I have. I mean, I just feel like at some point you're going to get such a big scope, it's just going to want to fall over. It's just going to want to tip all the time. So just by looks, those extremely massive objective lenses are just not appealing to me. And the little bitty ones, I don't like either. So usually between 40 and 50 millimeters is about where I want it. It's not just about looks, though. First of all, I want the scope to have the features that I'm looking for, okay? So what are the features I'm looking for? Well, first of all, the reticle is extremely important to me. Now, I like to shoot at long ranges. That is primarily going to come from dialing it in. I'm not going to use hold off, hold over. I'm not going to use the hash marks very often. So those giant Christmas tree reticles is not what I'm looking for. Just good grief. It's just a bunch of chaos to me on the lens. I don't like it. I don't want it. I want a simplistic lens. So I like a simple reticle, but I don't want it just to be a V-plex or a crosshairs. That's kind of boring to me. I do like, like the Boone and Crockett holdover points, a long range, hash marks or whatever the case. I do like a little bit of that. There could be times where you've shot your gun at certain distances and you know what those holdover marks are. So that can be pretty handy. But generally speaking, I'm going to dial it in to the center point. And, I just don't want those horrible reticle patterns on there. So don't want that. And I've seen so many good scopes that I thought, man, I've got to buy that scope. It's awesome. And then the reticle either was just a crosshair. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. Just V-plex, just crosshair. or it was the most ridiculous, elaborate thing I've ever seen. It's just like, can we just not get a good reticle? Burris seems to have a lot of good reticles. Vortex kind of has both, but they have some good ones. A company I'm going to be talking about here in a second, Miopta, they're more geared toward the hunting crowd, I guess, and they have some great reticles. So I want a simple reticle, but I do want a few holdover points, a few hash marks here and there, something added to it to not be just basic, but I don't want the big Christmas tree. And then also, I prefer second focal plane. Now, the big kick nowadays is first focal plane. To me, it's not a big deal. Okay, I understand that using the geometry and the mathematics of the reticle and say that this hash mark is 5 MOA or 5 mils to the right, and no matter what magnification I dial to or back from, it stays the same, and it's easier no matter what magnification to be on target quicker. I understand all that, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I just don't care about that, honestly. I use this for hunting and long range, so the all-around scope to me needs to be a second focal plane. Because first of all, I want to pull up that reticle, pull up that scope on an animal that's close to me, maybe snuck up on me, and just bam, they're within 20, 30 yards. And I want to be able to see the full reticle and not be trying to squint to see that little, aiming point. And if I'm sitting at a bench shooting at 1,000 yards, I'm going to have it cranked up all the way to its max setting, probably, or whatever setting it is where the hash marks do match with the math that goes involved in it. So if every hash mark is a mil or is a minute of angle, whatever the case, and I'm going to be using that to, literally try and hold over and hit a target at long range, I'm going to have it set at whatever magnification that is, where it is properly working, where I don't have to worry about it being off. And the center point doesn't change. It doesn't matter whether you have a first focal plane or a second focal plane. That center dot is going to be right on. And I'm going to dial for almost all that stuff. So I'm very rarely going to use hash marks or holdover points. I do like some simple holdover points or hash marks, but generally speaking, I'm going to dial that scope based on the center point, and it's not going to matter if it's first or second focal plane. And if I ever did want to get crazy about it and use the hash marks, I would just go to that setting, probably the top magnification setting, that it did match up. So to me, first focal plane is all it's doing is adding money to that scope that I don't need, don't even really want it. I'd much rather have a second focal plane. So just to recap so far, simple reticle, but not just a crosshair. I want some kind of compensation, some bullet drop compensation points, but basically a simple reticle with a few holdover points, second focal plane. I want it to look good. I want the turrets to be where I can actually use them without a coin or a screwdriver. And I want to actually be able to see, see actual marks on the side, from behind. I don't want to actually have to get up and look down. But I don't want them massive knobs that are so ugly and just ridiculous. So that's kind of the scope that I'm looking for. Now here's a couple more things that I haven't talked about. And these things honestly are more important than anything else I've talked about. More important than features is ruggedness and glass quality. So I can only judge ruggedness based on reviews and what people tell me, okay? I don't have the money to buy these scopes and torture test them and see if they hold up. I can only go off what people who do that type of thing say. And so if someone tells me, oh man, that particular scope is not rugged, it breaks all the time, I'm always trying to get it fixed, I'm always sending it in for repairs, I don't want that scope. If someone tells me, look, that scope is built like a tank. I mean, it's hard to disrupt anything. You can throw it down on the ground, pick it up, put it back on your rifle, and it's going to track perfectly, and it's not going to be broken. That's awesome to me. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Ruggedness is awesome. The SWFA Super Sniper, I have one, and I mainly got it because everyone talked about how rugged it was, and I thought for $300, and I thought that's awesome. Even though I think it's an ugly scope, it's a very rugged, awesome scope. So I'm looking for the scope to be rugged, okay? I'm also looking for glass quality. As most people who know anything about scopes know, the best glass, the best lenses in the world generally come from Europe. Next to that would be Japan. But the bad thing is most of your European glass is just so expensive, and your high-end Japanese glass is expensive too. So I'm looking. So how can I get a scope that's got good glass quality? I don't mean average. I mean good. I'm not saying tier 1 quality, but I'm saying very good. It's a rugged scope, and it has the features I want, and it looks good. Okay, for a price that I can actually spend. Not $2,000, not $3,000. So you can get a very rugged scope for $2,000. Okay, you can get a scope with amazing glass quality for $3,000. Amazing. You can get anything you want, and the sky is the limit on how much that you're going to pay for it. I'm not paying that. I can't pay it. The law of diminishing returns. Okay. Let's just say that you spend $300, you get this level of quality. You spend $500, you get this level of quality. You spend $1,000, you get this level of quality. You spend $3,000, you get this level of quality. You're going to keep spending a much higher percentage of money to get a smaller and smaller and smaller percentage of increased performance or quality. So I can't do that. I don't want to do that. So what scope can I say meets all my needs and is actually affordable and is going to be the perfect scope for this 7mm AUD8 build that I'm going for? Well, I'm going to show you some pictures of some scopes that meet a lot of these needs, and then I'm going to show you the scope that wins, and then I'll come back and talk about it. Here's the SWFA Super Sniper scope. Awesome scope. I just can't stand those turrets with those large knobs. It's just ugly to me. Here is a Mueller just scope that's way, way too long. Ugly, has ugly turret knobs as well. Obviously, you can go way too short as well. Now, here's a good-looking scope. Vortex Diamondback Tactical, but the reticle is just terrible, and I don't want a first focal plane. Here is a Razor LHT, but it's $900 to $1,000. Here's an example of a reticle that's too simple. Here's an example of a reticle that is way too complicated. All kinds of crazy hash marks going all over the place. Even some weird L at the top. No. Here's an example of a good reticle. Perfect. Simple. Has a couple holdover points. Love it. Love it. Now here is my scope. It's a terrible picture of it. I'm sorry, but it's the Meopta Optica 6, 3x18x50, second focal plane. I think it's the perfect scope. I'm having trouble getting good pictures of it, and I do apologize. This scope comes in around $600. It's got great glass. It's rugged, has all the features I want, and a great reticule. Here's the reticule. It's got actually about 10 to 15 different ones, but that is a couple examples right there of great reticules that it has. Okay, so the Miopta Optica 6, 3x18 by 50 second focal plane, is my choice for the best all-around rifle scope to go on the best all-around rifle, which I haven't talked about yet, in the best all-around rifle cartridge, which is the 7mm .8. And it's made in the Czech Republic. It has that good European glass. It's very rugged. It's got the looks I want, the features I want, the reticules that I want. It is just the perfect scope. It's about $600 for that model. And I just think it's awesome. So I want to apologize for the poor quality of this video. It's not coming out like I wanted it to. Keep in mind, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm very new to this, trying to make video things. So I will get better. The quality of these videos will get better. Some of the pictures were terrible that I put out there, but I will definitely figure it out. But I really do stand by this particular scope. I think it's awesome. Obviously, it's very subjective. You're going to disagree with a lot of my points. You might even find a couple facts that I was not 100% correct on. But comment below, what do you think is the best all-around perfect rifle scope in the categories that I mentioned? It's got to be affordable. It's got to have those things. Rugged glass quality, features. It's got to look good. So that is my video. Hopefully it's at least interesting to you. It's something I find interesting. So take care, have a good day, and we'll see you the next time.